Good afternoon. How was lunch? My name is Christian Mehta, and I'm the Vice President of Inclusion and Equity at the Association of Fundraising Professionals Greater Toronto Chapter. I am also the co-chair of the Diversity to Inclusion series here at AFP. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all here today to kick off this special series, first focusing on Chinese philanthropy. Before I invite Justin Poi, the chair of this conference, to say a few words, I want to provide you with a quick overview and background about this initiative. Ontario's urban centers are amongst the most socially and culturally diverse places. 3 million people here consider themselves to be of visible minority descent. And in recent years, we have made some considerable strides in areas such as gender equity, accessibility, and diversity training across a number of different sectors. Last year, in partnership with the AFP and Toronto and Ottawa chapters, we applied for funding through the Ministry of Citizenship and Immigration's Partnership Project Office to launch a series that would allow us to take a long-term view on inclusion by uncovering stories of giving amongst emerging donor groups and to carve out a dedicated space for an honest exchange about how to strengthen our work and the relationships we have with our communities. Our project is really a number of organized presentations that bring together, for the first time anywhere in Canada, donors, fundraisers, volunteers, and nonprofit managers to look at what we know, what we don't know about giving within the sector, and how we can work together to become a world-class, forward-thinking, inclusive-minded sector. We are fortunate to have secured the patronage of the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, the Honourable David Onley. His Honour can't be here today, but we'll be sure to provide him with the details and the outcomes of the day's proceedings. However, I do want to acknowledge that Georgia Capellis from the Ministry is here with us. Georgia, thank you very much for the Ministry's guidance and support on this initiative. Over the next 3 years, in addition to this conference, the association will be organizing similar gatherings looking at philanthropy within the following groups. South Asians, that conference is on January 25th. Jewish, African Caribbean, Muslim, Hispanic, and Indigenous communities. While we are cutting across diasporas, cultures, and faiths, we are also looking at dimensions of inclusion and philanthropy by focusing on women, LGBT groups, people with disabilities, youth, and Francophone Ontarians. We've got a really great diverse group of conferences coming up. Each of these gatherings will be video recorded, archived, and transcribed. And the best part is that all of these materials will be available online for free, and the conversations will continue on through discussion boards and social media. We have articulated 5 overarching learning outcomes for this project. First, we want to develop our collective intercultural competencies. We also want to rethink and examine the ways in which fundraisers identify, cultivate, solicit, and thank donors. We also want to learn about some of the best practices to promote and engage people on the ground and at leadership levels. We want to gain an appreciation also of the nuances found within each community. This is what I call the diversity within diversity factor. And finally, we want to offer an opportunity for cross-cultural networking and develop a research initiative that may stem from these events. At the end, we hope to have created a foundation from which new conversations will emerge and more advanced sharing can take place. This is a first time for our sector. In Ontario, in Canada, And some have actually noted that this is the first time in North America that we have done something like this with such coordination and rigor. So I want to thank you for joining us today in this opening conversation, and I look forward to this dialogue. It's going to be very exciting. So I'm pleased to begin, as I mentioned earlier, to introduce to you Justin Poi. When I first met Justin to discuss this conference earlier last year, I was taken aback by his immediate enthusiasm and excitement for the project. I remember Justin saying, "Man, this is exactly what we need right now, right here. There is so much that our community does that goes under the radar, and there is so much more that we can do. And we need to steer the conversation into a new direction. We need to talk about deep inclusion and participation in the sector, not just in fundraising." So Justin clearly has this really great sense of community and giving. And I think this might be a bit of a genetic thing. We'll learn about that in a moment. But I'm not going to regurgitate everything about Justin, tell you his bio. You can read that in the program. But I do want to underscore something special, that as a specialist in marketing to multicultural communities, Justin has an unmatched understanding of the inner workings of our diverse society. All the things that make us tick and don't tick, Justin gets a sense of it. He quickly assembled a group of advisors to plan this conference and led the charge in organizing each and every one of the sessions today. I am particularly honored to have his association and friendship, and I know that many of you in the room today feel the exact same way. So without further ado, Mr. Justin Poi.
Thank you very much, Krishan. Welcome, everybody, to the first Chinese Philanthropy Conference of the series of Diversity to Inclusion. I want to talk a little bit about the terms diversity to inclusion. So I recognize a lot of you guys in the room, and thank you very much for your support and coming out today. And I really hope that you get out of today what we originally intended. A lot of organizations understand diversity, but the problem is the whole aspect of diversity is usually introduced in the very late stages. So you've done your planning, you've done your research, you're ready to launch your campaign, and you might have already started your campaign, and then you say, "Hey, why don't we reach out to this group or this group or this group?" And then you call a bunch of volunteers, they come in, and there's really nothing they can do except try and take your existing materials and turn that into something that can raise something in the community. We have a lot of the Chinese media out today, and it's very interesting because they're asking questions from a different perspective. And a couple of them have asked me, how does something like this help the Chinese community? And the way I put it to them was, if you as an organization include the Chinese community as part of your planning process, then you are able to better serve and better market and better communicate to the Chinese community. Therefore, the Chinese community will have a better experience when they're involved with your charity, and then they will be more likely to give. So really, it's a full circle, and I think we're starting to see a lot more of it. But out of today, I was very sure that we had a very broad range of panelists. We have panelists that are Hong Kong Chinese, from Taiwan, from China, and I wanted to make sure that you feel very free to ask questions. There are no dumb questions, just ask questions, because this is a very rare opportunity where you'll get this kind of a diverse panel in front of you. Very often what happens is if you do embark on diversity, usually you'll put a little advisory committee together, and what often happens is when you put that advisory committee together, you talk to one person that you know, and they say, "Hey, I know a couple of guys, and we'll put together a committee." The problem is they're usually all from the same tight circle. What you're exposed to today is something that's very different from what you normally would be able to put together in your own advisory committees. So I encourage you to ask a lot of questions and really make sure you leave today knowing the tough answers. Before I introduce our keynote speaker, I do want to just point out a couple of things. In your program, Dr. Ming Tat Chung, who is the founding president and chair of this cultural center, actually has the flu, so he's unable to attend today. So he's not one of our speakers. But I do also want to recognize my friend Doris Chan, who is not in the program, but she will be participating in our roundtables. Doris, just say hi there. Yeah, Doris is involved in a advisory committee for sick kids. She's a donor to TIFF and involved in many other philanthropic activities, including the McMichael Gallery. So thank you very much for being here, Doris. Our keynote speaker. So Krishna mentioned that sort of community service and whatnot ran in my family. I learned at a very young age about community service, probably before I actually knew the real definition of philanthropy. And it was coming from my mother, and I know that that came from her father before her, and I will, let her speak on her own. But many of you know her as the first senator of Asian descent in Canada, and she was also the Chancellor Emerita of the University of Toronto. But before all of that, she was really spending a lot of her time, other than running a business, serving the community. She has been a philanthropist. She chaired so many functions and committees, and she got me involved at a very early age. And it's something that I hope we will see in the younger generation of the Chinese community as well, where they observe, watch what their relatives or their parents are doing, and also get involved as well. So her formal bio is in the inside cover of your program. But without any further ado, I'd like to introduce the Honorable Vivian Poi as a keynote. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, friends. Thank you for attending this conference on Chinese philanthropy. I want to point out that I'm not a fundraiser, so I can't give you any professional tips. I'm only going to talk about philanthropy from a Chinese perspective. You would know that philanthropy means a love of our fellow human beings, and those of us who are philanthropic make an effort to promote happiness and well-being for others by giving of ourselves, of our time, effort, and or our money. Irrespective of where we come from, rich or poor, that is what all human beings are capable of. I believe the world is made up of three types of people. Those who build are the givers, those who destroy are the takers, and those who do neither just exist. This afternoon, I'm going to talk about the builders. There are many ways of giving. Even the very young can volunteer their time. Those of us in our senior years can also do the same according to our physical or financial abilities. I remember the first time I heard about Meals on Wheels was from my mother-in-law, who was helping through her church. Volunteerism is philanthropy. Volunteers are from every walk of life, donating their time and their expertise. They get involved in projects of any size, and every person can make a difference. I'm amazed how generous some people are and what they're willing to give, either in their own countries or abroad. Many professionals, and we have many here today, go abroad to help the needy. We all have friends who are doctors, dentists, and nurses who spend their holidays going to developing countries to provide free service for needy patients. They even bring supplies and equipment with them. There are many groups that do this so admirably. I'll just give you one example. How many of you have heard of Orbis Flying Eye Hospital? Now, we have representatives here. Can you please stand up? Thank you. Thank you. I would like to say a few words about them since I'm on the Orbis Canada board. Orbis International has been in existence for 30 years, and it has saved tens of millions from blindness in the developing world. The number of volunteer doctors, nurses, and pilots are staggering. Yes, I even learned that the pilots who work for FedEx use their holiday time to fly the Orbis plane. The Orbis team not only do surgery, they also teach the local communities and build capacity. They have a classroom on the plane. And yes, they do have a number of projects in China. Now let me address today's conference, which is one of Diversity to Inclusion series, with the ethnic Chinese community being the first. There is a presumption that people from different cultures look at philanthropy differently. In Chinese, the words for philanthropy are good deeds, that's houxi, and kind deeds, xinxi. These terms have been in existence from time immemorial. For what I know, philanthropy in my family started from my grandfather's day. I know Justin mentioned about my dad, but he doesn't know enough about my grandfather. Now, it didn't start with my great-grandfather because he was poor, and he had to go to San Francisco during the gold rush to make a living. I grew up in Hong Kong and attended St. Paul's Co-ed College since grade 3. Looking at the foundation stone of the school one day, I realized that my grandfather was the only individual in Hong Kong who donated a large sum of money towards the building of St. Paul's Girls' School at the beginning of the 20th century, which later became the co-ed college that I attended. He was a progressive man who believed in education for girls 100 years ago. We used to have morning assembly in Lehigh San Hall, named after my grandfather, whose photograph hung on the right side of the stage. How did I feel? I thought I had better work hard to be the best student I could be because I would be noticed. One day, one of my teachers said, "I'm amazed how hard you work with the family background that you have." Even though I was very young, I didn't think that was an appropriate comment. Another thing I remember very well from my childhood days was the South China Stadium. Those of you from Hong Kong would probably know about the South China Stadium. It's very well known. Our extended family members would often go there, where my brother and I used to ride our bikes. Why were we allowed to do that? I found out that it was because my grandfather convinced the colonial government to provide land for Chinese youth in order for them to have a place for sports. Whether my family was involved with the building of the stadium or not, I don't know. Many years ago, a child would hear an adult say, "I don't care to be the richest person in Hong Kong. I just want to make sure people are looked after." One should not speculate because it drives prices up and people can't afford to live. One must invest in businesses to provide good jobs for employees so that their children will have a chance for a good education. One university in Hong Kong is not enough for the young people. High school graduates need another university. Now, today, Hong Kong has 7 or 8 universities. At that time, there was only one. That child was me, and the speaker was my father. There were many other things he said that have left a deep impression in my mind. Throughout my childhood and youth, I was greatly influenced by his beliefs and his actions. I learned that a kind word or giving people a helping hand in improving their lives make life much more meaningful than the accumulation of wealth. Philanthropy to my father was directed locally. Many things he did was for the people of Hong Kong and mainland China. That was common in his generation because they recognized that the needs were there. Many of you would know that Chinese have long memories, and relationships are important. Years after my father died, I remember my mother receiving gifts and was paid respect to by those whom my father had helped soon after the Second World War, when life was very difficult in post-war Hong Kong. This is a Chinese custom because we don't forget an act of kindness or a good deed. This Chinese tradition continued when people went abroad to settle. There are somewhere close to 100 million ethnic Chinese living overseas on every continent. And in the old days, of course, this included Hong Kong and Macau. Depending on the societies we came from, we are culturally different. However, there is a thread that binds us, and that is we all help the Chinese people, wherever they may be. So the saying, charity begins at home, does have significant meaning. To illustrate this, I'll use Fu Wei Education Foundation, which is a good Canadian example that has successfully helped over a number of years the orphaned Yi minority children in Liangshan, Sichuan province. Many of these children are orphans left behind by parents who died from AIDS or drug use, and they now have a chance to go to school. The most vulnerable are the girls who are put into school dormitories to keep them out of danger of being preyed upon. The tradition of money and human resources brought into China from the overseas Chinese communities has continued for hundreds of years, not only to assist those in need, but also in the building of bridges, roads, schools, and hospitals. The contributions of the overseas Chinese communities are so significant that there are museums established in China to honor and record the lives of these individuals and their communities abroad, such as there would be a gallery on the Chinese in Canada, in the US, Brazil, Malaysia, etc. In my family, my ancestors' contributions to China were limited to Guangdong province in our ancestral counties and villages, all close to Hong Kong. To say that the Chinese are clannish is an understatement. When we visit, we are welcomed everywhere, hospitals, primary and middle schools, and even factories that were established to be owned by the villagers to increase their income. We all know the importance of education to the Chinese. For centuries, and until the establishment of the People's Republic of China, wealthy families in the villages built schools in their family compound, not only to educate their own children, but also the bright sons of the poor villages, who would then have a chance to take the imperial exams. Since there has never been an aristocracy or a class system in China, the Chinese have always recognized that education is the only key to success. One successful scholar would bring glory to his entire county. During my father's lifetime, he used to give financial support to needy, qualified students to go to university because it was expensive in Hong Kong. All they had to do was to write to him and show proof of their acceptance by the university. Today, there are foundations that provide scholarships to Chinese youths to the best universities in the world. In recent years, the Chinese who settled overseas would often extend the support for higher education to any qualified, needy students. Since education is the path to a good future, this is the ultimate good deed. China is a very large country, and people from different areas would speak different dialects, have distinct traditions, as well as foods. In imperial times, that is, those who don't know Chinese history, it's before 1911 when China became a republic. These people, when they traveled to different provinces in China, those from the same villages or counties would form associations to help each other. This tradition continued when the Chinese went overseas. When the Chinese first came to settle in British North America, and that's what Canada used to be known, when they came in large numbers during the gold rush days in the middle of the 19th century, the same type of associations were formed based on the county of origin or family name, because names are very important to the Chinese. Also, the Chinese benevolent associations, as well as the Qi Kong Tong, which is, in translation, Chinese Freemasons, were established to offer help to all new settlers. These associations are still in existence today. This shows that philanthropy is an intrinsic part of Chinese culture. In Canada, philanthropic support towards the ethnic Chinese community and mainstream community used to be separate. It wasn't until 1980s that there were cross-cultural supports. From my own experience, an organization like the Mongshan Foundation, founded in 1964, only had the support of ethnic Chinese and was very much Chinatown-based until the early 1990s. This was when it started having support from the mainstream community, their corporations, organizations, as well as attendance to its annual Cathay Ball. I have lived in Canada for almost 54 years and have witnessed the evolution of philanthropy here. Since the late 1970s, our diverse population has become increasingly involved in contributing not only to our own ethnic communities, but also to Canadian society. One just has to look at how the Chinese community has moved in to help organizations such as our hospitals, the Kidney Foundation, the Cancer Foundation, the Heart and Stroke Foundation, the Diabetes Association, and many others. This is the work of this younger generation, a topic you'll be hearing more about this afternoon. A good example of the evolution in philanthropy is the Centre for Information and Community Services of Ontario. It started in 1968 in Toronto with a group of Chinese students volunteering information and interpretation services to Chinese residents. In 1974, it became the Chinese Interpreter and Information Services. At that time, it was called CIIS. And in 1988, the name was changed to Chinese Information and Community Services, and everybody would know it's called CICS. It's a very big organization today. And in 1998, it became the Center for Information and Community Services of Ontario with the same acronym. It now serves immigrants of all ethnic backgrounds. So what started as a student effort to help those in the Chinese community now serves immigrants to Ontario from all over the world. Today, philanthropy in terms of donating money has become very sophisticated. Foundations are established to direct these donations. Of course, laws for charitable donations are different in different countries. There are many charitable foundations established by the Chinese in Hong Kong, and a number of them will only direct donations to the Chinese population within and outside China, both in the relief of the needy, to help the younger generation to attend higher education, as well as promote Chinese culture, art, and traditions. One foundation that I know of which promotes Chinese culture exceptionally well internationally is the Robert H. N. Ho Foundation. This was the foundation that had made the exhibition of the terracotta warriors across Canada possible. Among many other Chinese cultural exhibitions, the foundation supports around the world. In Canada, we're very aware that we live in a high-tax country. Don't laugh. And charitable donations in money or in kind are very carefully considered. This topic will be on your breakout session this afternoon. So what started off as a good deed or a kind deed now also has, it's cut off. So what started off as a good deed or a kind deed now also has tax implications. Life is certainly not getting any easier, is it? Whether you are religious or not, one sentence will always ring true. It is indeed more blessed to give than to receive. Thank you for your attention. Have fun this afternoon.
Thank you very much for that. On behalf of AFP, we'd like to make a small donation in Vivian's name. Thank you very much for that speech. That's why she's the historian in the family. I always learn something new when I hear her speak. In the interest of saving time, I'd like to call up our panel. First, I want to introduce Larry Ma. Larry Ma is our facilitator today for our panels, and I've known Larry for years. We first met when he was a program manager at the Canadian Youth Business Foundation. I was a board member, and he is one of he basically runs the program for the Top 20 Under 20 program, and he also sits on a number of boards himself. So, Larry Ma, welcome. And what I'll quickly do is call our panel up. If you could please come up and have a seat, and then if you guys could move the podium, that'd be great. Daniel Hung, if you could please come up. Now, I apologized profusely to Daniel. In the program, it lists him as past chair of Monsheng Foundation. Actually, that's not even half as impressive as his bio, so if you could please read his bio, it's much more impressive than even that title. Danny Leung. Danny is a director with Dundee Wealth, and he also is a very active philanthropist in the community. And Alan Ma. Welcome, Alan. Alan is the new president of the Canada-Shanghai Business Association. It's an association that a lot of you may not know about. In fact, I only learned about it about 4 years ago, and the member base is really quite interesting. So if you have a moment to chat with Alan after, it would definitely be worthwhile. Benson C. Benson? Right. Benson is really well known in the community. He's probably overly involved in many charitable causes. Pretty much, I think he pretty much covers every health issue to do with the human body. And he's the president of Greenfield Golf. And Hugh Zhao, where's Hugh? My good friend Hugh is the president of CPAC, which is the Chinese Professionals Association of Canada. And while that sounds very generic, what's very unique about CPAC is that their member base is primarily, and they have a whopping member base. We're talking tens of thousands. They are professionals, mostly from mainland China. So it's a group that a lot of you will definitely want to try and reach out to in the future. So thank you very much. Larry, I'm going to leave it to you.
Sure, thank you. Mic on? Thank you, everyone. We have the next hour, and for us to sort of share with you some of our experiences as philanthropists. My role here is as moderator to try and get as much from them as possible. Before we get started, I just want to poll the group here. How many? I'm assuming everyone here, or the majority of you here, are fundraisers. Is that correct? Okay. How many of you have been successful in engaging the Chinese community? Okay, perfect. So today, if we do our job right over the course of the day, you'll walk away with some strategies, some tips, some best practices in terms of how to engage and steward the Chinese community. So panel, if you could have a seat, we'll have a conversation. There's microphones on your chair. There's 2 microphones. I think Benton, there's one, so there's 2. I'm the only one who's been fortunate enough to be mic'd up. So first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for your time today, for being here. As I sort of mentioned, the audience here today, they're hoping to walk away with some ideas in terms of how to engage the Chinese community from a philanthropic standpoint. So I have a few questions that I'd like to pose to the panel, but also at the halfway mark, I'll turn it over to the audience to also ask you questions as well. I have no specific order, so feel free to jump in as you see fit. But the first question I want to ask, and maybe Daniel, being a significant donor of the Mengshang Foundation, help us understand why do you give, and what motivates you to give?
I think. Thank you. I think the needs for senior care in the Chinese community, it's in Toronto, it's very much needed, and I have a good feeling, and I feel it's a good cause, and so I like to give, and I was involved, and like to participate and help and lead, bring more people into the foundation to help contribute.
So when you started giving, did someone approach you to give? And if so, how was that approach made? And how did that person, assuming it was a person, convince you to say yes?
Yes, it's of course it's a person approaching. But I think
Can it be a commercial?
I was first recruited to. I think it was recruited to help Mengshang before I start giving. It was recruited by Senator Poi back in the early 90s, and to help the Mengshang in organizing the first and second Cathay Ball, which I co-chair with Dr. Lam in the third and fourth Cathay Ball, and that's the time it really warmed up my heart to help and subsequently to give.
Right.
And of course, afterwards there was the long-term care beds that the Ontario government given out, and we were given with 2 long-term care centers, and we have to find the land and to raise money, and I was given the very difficult job as a co-chair of the capital campaign, and also to find the land. So I have to find the two parts of land, which you see at Richmond Hill and the Scarborough Center. And within 4.5 years,
Right.
I have to, with the committee, lots of help from Tanning Young, to raise $12.5 million for the capital campaign. And as I understand, I have to be, as a co-chair, and to go and ask big and small money, I have to be a donor as well, to set a good example. So I started to give.
Okay. So your foray into giving with Mengsheng started as a volunteer. So you're asked to volunteer, and through that positive experience, that motivates you to begin donating financially. Thank you. Danny, if I can ask you, Danny, sorry, keep looking elsewhere. So similar question. So why do you give, and what motivates you to give?
I think it's a combination that I've been working with a lot of clients. I'm a financial advisor. And throughout that process, I have learned from my clients throughout the discovery meeting and the way they have given. And my role in terms of helping them is really just to look at how to maximize the benefit both to the donor as well as to the charity. And throughout that process, I think oftentimes that there are many things that affect in our life that we have an emotional impact that we want to give to those causes. And that's one of the reasons why I give to certain charity as well.
Right. Can you talk about certain approaches that people have made to you to say, Danny, love for you to get involved, and how was that, so were you asked to become a volunteer, and then from there you became similar to Daniel?
Yeah, usually that's, I get approached to sit on boards and, certain committee to help out from a volunteer standpoint.
Right.
And that's when you get to know about the organization, the cause, and then before you know it, you want to get involved a little bit more. So aside from just your time volunteer, you also tend to, make charitable donation as well.
Right, thank you. Alan, let me ask you a quick question. Why do you give?
I just gave some donated to the TIF, and also 2008 in China had a bigger earthquake. I, same as all Chinese people, line up, give money or give and donate one container item to the China. That's all.
Okay. Benson, I'm going to ask you a different story or a different question. Okay, Benson?
Why different questions? Okay, all right, okay. Go ahead.
I was going to just change it up a little bit. Have you ever been approached in a manner that was offensive?
In what way?
Well, let's see.
In terms of fundraising?
In a manner where they wanted your support, but it was done in a way that you were offended, whether because of cultural or personal. But
Okay, offensive is a very strong word. Okay,
I'm a strong person.
Okay, I wouldn't say it's offensive, but sometimes when people approach you for fundraising, sometimes they do in a way what we call put you off in a way.
How?
Because see, we're all professionals here, and as Senator Vivian Poy said, in Chinese culture, relationship and connection is very important. So some people, what I found when they come into us, they're being too professional. I'm very professional. They become not passionate enough. We just see what they want to know is the dollar, the amount, the figure. And basically, they can just talk to a wall, okay, and say the same thing, okay. So when I saw that, right, so basically I said, thank you very much, I'll get back to you, okay. And that's basically it, yeah. So in a way, it's not offensive. He will know that was offensive, but in my tone, basically it's no, in a way, yeah.
So they weren't able to connect with you, so it came across as being very impersonal.
I would say so. Sometimes, every now and then, you do come across some people that, not everyone said that, every now and then it would.
So let me ask you the flip side of that question, Benson. So can you describe an experience where you've been approached and that approach was done in a way that you said yes?
Okay, because in my personal experience, as I said, I have a company that we do golf tournaments, so we fundraise, for Kingdom Foundation, teachers, and so forth. So on one hand, I have to ask people to help out my tournament. At the same time, I'm, for example, sitting on the Toronto Hong Kong Lions Club's chair, and also the Taiwanese Association. At the same time, people coming to us and ask for donation. So in a way, I sort of understand both sides of the coin. Okay. To answer your question, when people come to us, okay, when I say yes, usually a couple of things. Number one, again, go back to the Chinese relationship, and people have to know you, because normally people in our community, they will like to donate something or support someone they know, okay? Rarely they come up to us and say, oh, hi, I am Joe Blow and I need money for this. And if I don't know them, rarely I would just say yes, okay, rarely, okay? Not 100% no. So when people know you enough, and number one, number two, if you know them, they have done things for a long time, they're doing this, oh yes, this is a person. And it's very sincere, and it's a good cause. If that's the case, normally it will strike us, okay? Us being myself, or maybe I representing, let's say, Lions Club, so I table it to the board, the board will say, yes, oh, it sounds a good idea. That person is really doing things for that foundation, all right? So if that's the case, then we probably will seriously consider. That's the way I put it.
Right. So just looking, around the room, I would hazard a guess that most of you are on the outside of the Chinese community, so they don't know you or they know the community. So, and this is for anyone on the panel. Any advice you would give to them in terms of how they can begin getting to know you or members of the Chinese community, or understanding or better understanding the Chinese community? What are some, or anyone? Hugh, let's start with you because you haven't spoken yet, Hugh.
Well, I think I'm sitting in the wrong panel because listening the four.
Oh, you're on the 2:30 panel, right? Sorry.
I've been listening to the four panelists, and then they haven't all been on the giving end, but I'm more on the receiving end, because I'm the president of CPAC and also the president of Education Foundation. Though I do give, but I give peanuts, and also I gave a big chunk of time. I just want to echo what Benson says, and just give a good example. Benson and I, we have been knowing each other for many years, and I have not started asking Benson to donate to my foundation, because I know, yeah, because I know the longer I hold this relationship, and he has no way to go backwards when I ask him, he will have to say yes.
Fancy, if you
So
like.
that's how you nurturing the relationship with the Chinese community. I'm just, in a way, educating. But personal relationship is so vital and important. I think the biggest mistake to approach a Chinese is to be too professional. It doesn't work if you are too professional, even though I'm the president of a professional association. You always start from small things, okay? A coffee, a letter, an email, and sometimes a dinner. That will work. The second thing is you have to be patient. Okay? If any of you from Florida that I don't know, you come to me or any of the panelists, I guarantee you they will say no if you come ask for money. Okay, so that's the way the Chinese are giving. Of course, I do not represent the whole Chinese community. I'm from mainland China, so I know a bit more about the mainland Chinese. So that's if I say something wrong, so please forgive.
Does anyone else want to answer that the question about how could, advice you would sort of give for the audience of how they can begin engaging and getting to know the Chinese community better, things that they can do? Participating in events, inviting you to sit on boards, committees. Daniel?
I guess you have to participate in different kind of events or activities to get to know people. In the Chinese community, it's the same as the mainstream community. Getting to know the person first, and instead of letting them know that the first time I hand out my business cards is my next question is to ask you for money.
Yeah.
So you build up some kind of a friendship relationship, although he knows your motive is to ask. It's always easier to make friends first instead of just go in and do a cold call, especially when you're asking for a larger sum of money.
Right.
And you have to show them what your organization has done, and something that can impress him, and find out what is his taste. I mean, he likes sweet or he likes sour. You go his way. You ask talk his language,
Spicy.
and spicy and whatever. He likes Chinese food or he likes Italian food, and so you go to the area that he's comfortable, and then you ask.
Right. The typical fundraising cycle is typical is anywhere from 6 months to a year. Is that similar within the Chinese community? So if someone were to approach you day one, that cycle is the same, or is it? I heard it's patience. So I heard potentially longer. Could it be longer if you were sort of outside of the community and you wanted to target the Chinese community? Is that cycle longer? Is it a 2-year cycle versus a 6 months to 1 year cycle? Anyone?
I'm very new for the kind of things, okay? Because I come from mainland China, so new immigrations. Most people come from mainland China have no kind of strong mind, have to donate, okay? Except some special things happen. And a very close relate for every people, then there will be donated monies, okay? If not that kind of things happens, you just want to ask money, I agree, say no, right? Yes, and also I think a personal relationship is very important. Especially like I'm a new immigration, right? We do some things, we all buy some invest monies or donated monies. We really respect the personal relationship. For example, I donated money to the TIF. If not Justin Paul tell me some things, I will say no. Why I donated $60,000? Not stupid, right? But he told me, tell me the donate the valuable. Then I say, yeah, makes sense. I do something, right? So I think in this country, have lots of foundation. So if you do some things, I need to, I agree, start too smaller and let the people know the worth and also what is related to you, okay? If people think it's not related to me, no, people don't want to do something, right? For example, some family member have some fell ill or go to hospital, right? Have surgery or do something. But if you tell you this kind of money or foundation raise money to the hospital, they will be interested. So basically, I will like to say new Chinese immigration, we need to let them to know what is the worth, what is the purpose, what is beneficial, who is beneficial.
Right.
Then people will be like to donate money. Yeah, this is my opinions. Yeah.
Does anyone else
Thank
want to
you.
comment on? Thank you, Alan. Does anyone else want to comment on that?
Yeah, I do have a couple. Because I know one of the reasons here people to here today is want to know like how to approach a Chinese group to fundraise from this group, right? I was talking to one of friends sitting beside me, could be Daniel. I think number one is glad that we have this panel. Number two is one of the reasons that we have it today because in the last 20 years, I think there's an uprising of economic of China, and there are more Americans coming here, and you see, what we call the wealth coming into this country, and somehow for non-Chinese speaking people, they have a sort of a little hard time of approaching this group, okay, because culturally they're a little bit different. But if I go a little bit deeper, my personal opinion is, even within a Chinese group, in a way, there are three different Chinese groups, in a way. Okay, number one is, for us, we know because we are Chinese. For guys, you don't know because Chinese are Chinese, all right? Okay, in a way, okay, right? Okay.
Are you saying that we all look the same?
Okay. Because there is a Hong Kong Chinese, okay, put it this way, Chinese from Hong Kong origin, okay? Okay, they were governed by British law for the last 100 years. And then they have Chinese from Taiwan. Taiwan has separated from China since 60 years ago, so something like this, right? Okay. So, okay, thank you. Okay. So Taiwan is another group of Chinese. At one point, they were governed by Japanese. So in a way, for 50 years, okay, in the 18th century something. So their culture is a little bit different. And then the third group is the mainland Chinese group, okay? And mainland Chinese group, correct me if I'm wrong, is China, the economic power has not really rise until the last 20 years. So basically what we call is a new wave of rich people, new wealth coming out, okay? So as a Canadian, normal Canadian, when you come to this group, they all are different, okay? How are they different is, for example, okay, people in Hong Kong, they already understood, okay, the fundraising aspect, because in Hong Kong, day in, day out, they do that all the time on TV. Okay, Taiwanese people are a little bit more subtle, okay? They have wealth, like people dressed like whatever, okay? You wouldn't recognize him. He will have 100,000 workers. That's the way they are, okay? And with people in China, again, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Because with the economic power coming for the last 15 years, okay, when 15 years ago, when the country was not as powerful as now, okay, when you have not enough to eat, you will not think about donate. You think, how can you donate to me, right? Okay, seriously, right? So what happens is, so all these, all of these groups have a different heritage thinking. So when you approach them, they have to be different. But if you treat them all the same, that would be difficult for you, that's number one. And number two, again, from my personal point of view, because I've been here for 30 years, there's no offense to anyone here, is sometimes when we talk about the Chinese culture is comfort level, as Dr. Hugh said, right? And connection, and the relationship, what's relationship? Relationship is a very vague word, okay? Relationship is, if I like you, I have a good relationship. If I don't like you, I don't have a relationship. I just learned something from somebody who said, people will not remember what you said, but they will remember how you make them feel, okay? See, what happened is, sometimes what I found it in here, okay, or North America is, when people they talk to someone when they don't speak good English, okay, the people with poor English will feel intimidated. The intimidated feeling are not built within, as from the reaction from the opposite side. If for whatever reason you want to speak to someone, you want to approach them to especially fundraise, right? Okay, you want to get the money, and unconsciously you make them feel intimidated, okay, uncomfortable. In a way, I would say that's the end forever, right? This is something that, okay, I don't know whether I shouldn't say this right just now, because sometimes you don't know that you don't know. But on that side, people know that you did something really wrong. But you don't know because you're not Chinese, right? But we are Chinese, oh, okay, thank you very much, okay, that's it. Right? This is something that is, how do you learn that? I don't know how to teach you, okay? But this is something that your objective is, I want to try to approach to the Asian group. Okay? Asian doesn't have to be Chinese, could be Malaysia, whatever. Okay. maybe I'm talking too much already. Okay. Okay. Um, anyway,
Wanna switch
so,
mics?
yeah. So this is something I.
Switch mics.
Yeah. This.
This one, this one.
Hello. Hello. Yeah. Anyway, just because sure, this is something that is my experience when because I've done enough things to talk to some other people. That's what they told me. Oh, Joe Bull asked me to donate. It made me feel really bad. Why would I donate to someone that I don't like? Period. Right. Anyway, thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Benson. Just sort of along that train of thought, for those agencies who are, I would sort of use the word mainstream, who would like to expand or diversify their donor base, if there's one piece of advice that you would give to them to better understand and better engage the Chinese community, what would that be? Danny, I'll start with you. If there's one piece of advice you would give to a mainstream agency,
I think
sorry.
I think awareness.
Awareness.
Awareness is I think is the first step.
How do they get awareness?
Marketing, exposure into the Chinese market. If it's like a mainstream company, getting a good Chinese name and be through media or whatever to introduce your company, so that the general awareness it's very important. And many in my experience, even the big donors, although they know you, they want to see you are actively participating in the community,
Right.
before they will help you through the Chinese route that you're trying to approach. Otherwise, you can just go straight to them and they can deal with you directly. But if you want to get the Chinese people to participate, I think the general awareness is very important.
Okay, so awareness of being in their community, them being able to see that you're visible in their community. Great, thank you. Danny, I'll throw it to you.
I think the awareness is definitely important, but I think it's also the education. I think a lot of people would like to give but don't know if they can afford to give or how to give even. So I think both the awareness and the education, to help the Chinese to understand a little bit better how our tax system works, how to best maximize their donation would probably bode well.
Okay, now let's dig a bit deeper with education. So how? How would you do that?
I think if you can, well, one of the ways is Alan was saying that, or Daniel was saying that, through marketing. I think marketing, if you can do some kind of a maybe workshop to get your donors to attend a seminar.
Seminars?
I think from a broader spectrum that you can educate, and you can also be able to maybe even filter out some of the donors who are looking to donate but not necessarily know how to, aside from the cash donation.
Right, thank you. Alan.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. The two gentlemen said that we need more exposure in the Chinese community, and whatever show up any event or gala, and also newspaper. I think is a way. There are lots of new Chinese immigration like read the newspaper or online. Getting people know who you are, where the money going to, and what they did before. They want to see the truth. They want to choose, because in the China, people always thinking why the money go, and the money I donate, maybe the money have some, some people have a scandal, right?
Right.
They don't know where the money going, why I donate the money. So very clear to show people the pictures. Okay. What is the foundation did before? Right. What is the purpose? Who is the beneficial? And I think this is very important. Like education people. That's
so being accountable, showing the donor base where the funds are actually going. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Benson.
Yeah, the thing I want to add is maybe persistent, because if you know the people well enough, they know who you are, but you have to be consistent, day in, day out, so people know that you are consistent, you are, what you represent. Then hopefully one day, when they have the budget, and then they will, you are top of mind awareness for them.
Thank you. Hugh.
When Larry posed this question, I prepared many tips, but since you are only asking one, so I will give just one, okay? I think when you are deal with the Chinese, your intentional purpose is to get donation. Let's start by sharing the stories rather than telling the numbers and the facts, because Chinese people in general are very good at numbers, so they don't want to talk about numbers.
Hugh, you're not generalizing, are you, Hugh?
So share the stories. If you can motivate them, move them, and get them, touch them, I think that's the key. I just want to give you an example. I've been running the Education Foundation of CPAC since 1999. I actually been the president and founding member of the foundation for many years as the president. I personally never approached a single person to ask for donation. It's always, when they attend our award gala, they approach me. Last year, there's 3 people approached me. We got 2 donations. Because they see what you are doing, they see the stories you are telling, they see the impact on the community, on the students, so they see the impact of their donation will be. So that's the important thing. When we talk about fundraising, it's hard, especially Chinese. We have a term about face. The face to Chinese is very important. And I'm a shy guy, so it's very difficult for me to ask people for a donation. But if I can deliver something in front of their eyes, and they will willingly to donate. I think that's the key.
Thank you. How important is it that a Chinese person asks someone in the Chinese community? How important is that? Anyone?
I guess it depends on who you're asking. I don't think it's better. It's a matter of who is asking. It's a matter of who is the better person to ask.
So by that, so are you referring to having like a vice president or a president come in versus a manager? Is that what you're referring to? Or like the type of person in the organization who's making the ask?
Same, there's no difference whether it's you're asking somebody in the Chinese community or in the mainstream. The person who is asking, has to be more or less in the same level as he is or she is, so that he or she will feel respected, feel important. And but doesn't matter whether it's a Chinese or a Caucasian asking. Sometimes you feel better being asked by a Chinese, sometimes feel better asked by a Caucasian. But you have to know who he is and ask the right question in the right way.
Does anyone else have any comments on that? Would you agree with Daniel?
I think that's very important.
Would anyone here disagree with Daniel?
No, I think what Daniel says make a lot of sense. It is also who you ask and how you ask, and the person that's asking, if it's in similar position, that it's easier to relate to. I think that makes a difference. Somebody asking.
Oh, by the way, please turn off your cell phones. Benson.
Good example. I think who is asking is important, and just as important is it depends what organization you're representing. What I meant is some organization, they want you to donate $1 million, okay? Some, they don't really care. They just want numbers. They want, say, High Foundation. If you give $100, they're happy. Let's say they have to ride for your heart, very successful. So it ought to boil down to what is the dollar amount you expect people to donate, right? Because if you want a $500,000 donation, okay, you work a lot harder. It's different than I want this person to donate $300 a year for the next 20 years. They are different, right? So it depends on what is your objective. And I think that will have a direct influence and direct, correlation of like who you send, how you want to present yourself. I think that's important. That's a big difference between the $500,000 versus $1,000 a year.
Okay. I'm going to ask one more question, then I'll turn it over to the floor for questions. So now that they have you, okay, they have you. You're giving, you're donating, they have you. How do they keep you?
I think one of the things.
Mike? Thank you.
I think one of the things is keep you involved, keep you informed, and some of the progress that they're working on, and some of the impact that it made in terms of your contribution and your donation. I think that information would keep you, continue giving, because you know where your money's actually going, what it's actually doing.
Right. So via a newsletter.
I think it could be a number of different medium. It could be a newsletter. It could be email. It could be, could be from a magazine that it's showing the actual event.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Anyone else? Hugh? How do you keep your donors?
Well, a couple of things. One is you continue the worthy cause that you attract the donor at the beginning and do it well, okay? And they will see the value. And the second thing is really, is you have to keep a close relationship with them, okay? Don't forget them. That's an important thing. Even a barbecue or a drink, that will help. There are two types of, in my own opinion, there are two types of donors. One is low-key. I have donors who give money. She basically told me that don't let anybody know, okay? I donate the money.
Okay.
So those kind of person is very personal. For a personal relationship, you have to keep low-key and keep a constant contact. There are some other donors who want to high profile, want to promote, in that case, you need to really show them the transparency, how you run this organization, how the funds are utilized. So that way, you keep the relationship.
Thank you. Daniel, did you want to comment on that?
I think one thing we can do is to do a personal visit. It doesn't have to be long, 15 minutes,
Right.
just to have a face-to-face update on the progress. Especially, you travel all the way to Mississauga in 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just do a 50 minutes update and leave. And it really shows your sincerity.
Okay.
And I have not been involved in fundraising in the past couple of years, so I did not make a sale by email, but I do personal face-to-face communication. If not, I'll pick up the phone and talk. Right. So it's more personal, and the donor will feel more comfortable and feel more respected.
Okay, great, thank you. Benson, do you want to, or Alan, do you want to add to that? How do they keep you as a donor?
Yeah, I think just keep in touch. Don't forget them. People donate money always like get some respect, right? Respect. So if people feel you always touch him, contact him, we feel that he being respected. So for next time, they will still do something. Otherwise, they will be forget.
Right.
I think.
Benson,
Yeah, I would say, they just as Hugh said, you just keep the relationship. You don't call me every day, but at least okay, okay. At least when I see you, then well, with a good gesture, right? Because sometimes, as you know, some of the fundraising are one-off. Like I donate, I don't know, $20, whatever, for this campaign for this year, and there won't be another campaign until next 5 years. So sometimes you do not expect people to donate same amount to you year after year, because in Toronto there are so many different foundation now, right? So people are, just keep a nice contact in a way.
Great. I'd like to open it up to the floor. Any questions from the audience? If you can just come to the mic, please. If you just state your name and ask the question.
My name is Ken Kids. I don't know if this is on. You've talked a lot about Chinese community fundraising, and thank you all for being here and giving your time. I want to turn the conversation a bit to charity efficiency and effectiveness, and whether or not there are any different standards in the Chinese community with respect to charity transparency, accountability, cost of fundraising. You knew you were going to get that from me. So any different standards that we might need to be sensitive to?
Anyone? Daniel?
I don't know if I'm the right person to answer this. I guess every community, the way they spend money to do fundraising is a little bit different. But I think the results in terms of numbers, it's about the same. Like you try to raise $100, you spend whatever, $50, $80, or $20. It's really depends on the project. And some projects are more of awareness, and the efficiency is kind of low. But some are really, you basically go for the big numbers, big donors to compensate for the activities cost.
Well, I guess along the lines of transparency, I guess the question that I sort of have for the group is, does it matter if your dollar was going to a specific Chinese program or a cause within a hospital or within a healthcare agency, would that matter more to you than if you were to give to a general fund, for example?
I think to a way it does, and it depends on the people you're approaching. Let's say, for example, the Lions Club, we have a secretary because of Justin on the board and Frank looks on the board. Okay, that's one reason why we said about relationship. If we didn't know Justin and Frank, we may not do that. Okay, that's number one. And number two is when you talk about efficiency. When you approach some organization and they already, giving funds to other organizations before, then sometimes they will ask, okay, and we often will ask, what is your administration fee? Whether it's 20%, 50%, 80%, no 80%. Okay, I'm just saying. Okay. So there's sometimes that transparency would help. Okay, that's not the main focus, but that is something that some people would like to know.
Ask a follow-up question. It's wanting to know how important is it to engage the entire family in the philanthropic discussion. Often we talked about, approaching people individually, but to what extent should we also think about engaging the broader family unit?
Good question. Hugh, you want to answer that?
Chinese also has this tradition that in the family, normally the wife manages the family. So. If you can make the wife happy, and normally the husband will say yes. Seriously, I think the key is really there's some relevancy, and the early question regarding the general funds and the specific targeted fund actually is another good example. For example, I have friends who told me they donate to United Way, but specifically ask United Way to divert that fund to Education Foundation. So they value the United Way, but they don't want the fund to be used arbitrarily by United Way. They want to do this. And as to the family, well, if CK's, for example, is a very good hospital and everybody knows, if the family has some connection, there's some relevancy, it doesn't matter whether it's wife or husband. But normally, start a conversation first, find out who is the boss at home. That would help.
Daniel,
I know,
you had a
who's the
follow-up.
boss at
You
home.
answered the
I
question.
know.
You okay? Next question.
Hi, I'm Loretta Lam. I'm actually the advisor of Orbis International, and also I run my own marketing firm for the last 17 years. Actually, it's more than not just a question, it's really to share, because I heard a lot of advice from the panel, and I just want to tell you that actually I'm part of, my history is like, in the past 17 years, not only helping corporations promote to the Asian community, but also help a lot of fundraising, sitting on the advisory board as well. Like Chinese Cultural Center is one of my projects. I think Daniel actually remember the days we worked together. 17 years ago. Okay. I want to say that one thing that you all been talking about, awareness, education, relations, but also I think it is useful for someone who doesn't understand the culture, don't know anybody, is to do two things. One of it is identify a partner in the community that can actually lead you to the different connections in the community. That is very, very important. And I think a lot of the major foundations, a lot of the hospitals manage to do that, to identify who are the key people who can lead them into the community. I think this is very important. The second thing is about like, study your foundation, study your charity, to see if there's a link that you can identify, emotion link, like does it tie into the like a family structure of the Chinese community? Does it do anything related to the Chinese community? Does your patients, like who are your patients, who are your research, who are your doctors, who are the people working for you? If there's a tie there, there's emotion tie there, they are more willing to give. And how do you publicize and tell your stories through these emotion ties? I think that's very important. And also to answer the question about able to allow your donors to identify which part of the programs they want to donate to is also very important. For instance, like Orbis Canada, we allow the donors to designate the programs to China projects. I think that's it's very, very helpful, right? So this is actually a short tips that I want to share.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kathy Moroska from Seneca College, and my question is about recognition. I was listening to the Honorable Poy's story about her grandfather's name on the block of St. Michael, not St. Michael's, St. Paul's. Thank you, I have a terrible memory. The school, and the cornerstone, and your grandfather's St. Paul's. Thank you, not Mike. Okay, well, so. I have a terrible memory, and but the cornerstone and your grandfather's portrait. And I'm wondering if that is something that motivates and I mean, we're generalizing here, but is that a motivating factor to have a name on a building, your name on the wall, to have photos up of your family? Is recognition and public recognition something that drives the Chinese community to give?
Great question. Anyone?
Hello. As I said before, there are two groups of donors in the Chinese community. Well, probably in general. One group is really, they want a low profile. They don't want to be known. Okay, if you propose that, there's no attraction. Yeah. For those group of people, you have to really rely on connections. Like Alan gave the example, Justin asked Alan to donate TIFF. I don't know whether Justin has the title in there or not, but the president asked Alan, Alan may refuse, but Justin asked Alan, he will say yes. So the connection is very important. There's other group of people who want to donate and who want to be publicized. Yes, the recognition is important. But in general, no matter which group of donors, you have to recognize You just have to find the right way to recognize. Those people who do not want their name known, you have to recognize them. But you have to recognize they through personal contact, through private parties, through other channels.
So no different from any other.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I would add to that, there's one difference, if I may ask. Is something you have to read between the line. You know, when you ask people, "Hi, Dr. Hill, would you like to have your pictures on the wall?" Normal people, the first reaction, they would say no. No one could say, yeah, put my pictures on. Yeah, no one would do that, right? But how do you know he's yes? Because in China, it's very passive in a way culture. When they say yes, doesn't mean yes, and no doesn't mean no, right? Okay. That is something that you have. Okay, right? Okay. Yes, they means thank you, noted, thank you. Okay, I'll get back to you. Okay, but if they continue to say yes, noted, that means it's no. Okay, right? Okay. So the way to read between the line is that's what I said. As a fundraising, is an art. It's not science. It's something that is you'll find out. Okay.
Thank you.
Hi,
Next question.
I'm Sharon Lee, and I just want to add to what Loretta had said. It's really great to hear about the Hong Kong Chinese, the mainland Chinese, the Taiwanese Chinese, but there's also North American Chinese, and I guess I represent that. I cross between two worlds. I am too Canadian for the Chinese community. I'm too Chinese for the Canadian community, so it's sort of like nowhere. I'll give you a really good example. Because I subscribe to the Chinese television network, Rogers thinks that I read Chinese. So they send me everything in Chinese, and I call them. I said, "Hello, I don't speak it, I don't read it, like, what are you doing?" And because they don't understand that it's from my father, right? So I think that there's a whole different philanthropy in there. So I think we're a group that's missed, because I sit on boards, I donate, but people don't know how to approach me. They don't know which way to go. And a lot of times I make donations and people think, "Oh, great, you support that." But they don't understand it's because my father asked me, not because I care about your charity, but because my father asked me. And because out of respect, I give, right? So I think there's also another version of the North American Chinese as well that sort of has to be heard out there, because I agree with Benson that, sometimes I'll say no, but if you get one of my parents to ask me, then yes, I will, because dip, the water torture, right? But so I think there's a sort of a different dynamics that way, and I think that charities in North America sort of have to think about those too. That it's just not one approach, it's not one broad stroke. It's a whole bunch of doing your study, due diligence, and understanding the person you're approaching. So that if you meet someone like me who've grown up here, who've gone through the school system. Don't always assume that I understand the culture, because many times I go to the stores and they start either speaking to me in Cantonese or whatever, and I don't know. I just point, right? I go to dim sum, I just point. I don't know. So I thought I'd add that.
Thank you.
Great. My name's Ann Rosenfield, and I work at the Wood Green Foundation. First of all, thank you for your candor. This is really enormously helpful, so thank you so much. The question I'm wondering about is there's some pretty good research in kind of the, for lack of a better word, the Caucasian community that level in terms of the fundraiser talking to the donor for women isn't as important as it is for men. Would you say that is true in the Chinese community? And I know we're generalizing, but would you say that's as true? Because you were saying it was quite important that people at the same level speak to each other. So is that more true just for men in the Chinese community, in your opinion, or true as well for women?
Does anyone want to comment?
I guess it's the same as any community. It's again, my answer is always it all depends on the person. If I'm receptive to talking to a woman equally as talking to a man, then any ladies can approach me. But if I prefer to talk to a man versus over a woman, then don't send a woman to approach me. It's the same anywhere.
So how does one find that out? Like how would one know? You just try once and then.
No, you only had one chance, one ask. So
It's research.
you better do the research.
Research. Okay. Does anyone else want to comment on that?
I agree with Daniel. Unless you're extremely beautiful and then you approach a man, that may make a difference. But otherwise, I think the human nature is really doesn't matter. I want to emphasize that the relationship and I want to get back to Benson's earlier answer, say that the Chinese way of handling things are a bit fuzzy. Yes means no, no means yes, okay? I tell you a trick, okay? You always go with the person who bridged this meeting or whatever, okay? They will help, they will give you tips. For example, if you connect Alan through Justin, when Alan says no, you're not sure, you don't want to ask, push it again, okay, go ask Justin. He knows. That's how it works. But the Chinese has its own culture, but they are very rapidly adapting to the Canadian culture as well, okay? If you ask me a question, I tend to give you a straight answer because I've been here for very long. So you have to, don't be freed by those cheap stereotypes, the Chinese. Actually, they are adapting the Canadian culture very rapidly, especially the new immigrants, because now the internet is bring the world together, and they know a lot of things about the Canadian culture.
Alan.
I think, you should try to establish a leadership for all the Chinese communities, Chinese associations. Chinese have a special culture, very respect for the friendship. And also, we always think if some people want something, then try to make friend, it's not work. You try to make a friend first. Build a relationship, build a respect. Then, by the time, it will be work. You should get people know each other. And try to, it's not just for the, or ask money you donate. Also, if some people have some problem or some required, you also can help something. So establish this kind of special relationship. Then by time people will be give to something for sure. There's a special Chinese peoples. They don't want all the some peoples. Always want to. If some people give their good help, they will be help you more. So time relationship is very important. Don't think about when you need something, then start to talk to people. No, build the relationship first. I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Christian, I want to do a time check. I know that it's 2:00. Is it till 2:20? Okay, good. We have some more time. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is John Wong, and I'm with Hospice Toronto. First of all, to echo other people's words, thank you very much, gentlemen, for this great opportunity. I have a very sensitive question to ask you. I work for a hospice doing fundraising, and within Chinese culture, lack of a better term, there's some very taboo subjects. Illness, mental health, death. And I'm very curious to hear from you, how does one begin to have the conversation with the Chinese community about these healthcare-related issues that are affecting everybody? And while it's very difficult to have these conversations with the community at large, we do know for a fact that the community is accessing the services of organizations that are looking after people living with these conditions.
Great question. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Fair enough. At least we put it out there.
Oh my God! Why am I again? Anyway, sorry. What do you represent? I'm sorry.
My organization is called Hospice Toronto.
Okay. Well, okay. See, a lot of times the way I look at it is actually is for certain organization with a health issue. Okay, sometimes it's easier to approach because there's patients out there, right? Then you can talk to them, right? Because as long as you can connect with the same thing, whether that person has a illness or whatever, if they or the family gone through certain trauma or whatever, then they will likely to talk to you. May not be right away, but I think there's a source of list then you can talk to, the way I see it. I don't know. What difficulty do you have right now, in a way, finding potential or identifying?
It's not even having the conversation about giving a gift to support our organization. It's even before that, having the conversation about living with serious illness, caring for a loved one at home that is at end of life. Again, being traditionally taboo subjects within the Chinese culture.
I think, back to my previous answers, awareness. You have to let the general public know what you're doing, what you're offering, so that they have better understanding of your organization, and let them know where to contact you, rather than just you trying to contact them. And of course, through different partners, you find a right partner to reach out.
If I could maybe comment on that, I've been through death in the family as well, and my mom is from mainland China. I'm sort of Canadian-born, first generation here. That conversation happened through the kids, and oftentimes I would sort of, that may be generalizing, but you have the conversation with the children, and the children, if they feel it's appropriate, they have a conversation with, the one that is sick. But in my case, certainly it went through myself and my brothers, first and foremost. And my uncle passed away over the holidays, and the same process. It was always through the children first that those conversations were had. Yeah. Hugh, you wanted to comment on that?
I don't have a great answer for you, but I maybe share with you a experience. A lot of the mainland Chinese don't know in early days, they don't know about the stem cell, donation. It sounds scary. Even when I first heard of it, it's really scary, So I really didn't pay any attention to that and did not start any conversation. But the other half, who is the stem cell organization who helped on this, they partner with us. We have a summer festival which attracts normally 5,000 people. So 2 years ago, they approached me to ask to see if they can partner with us to promote this campaign. I said, when I heard the story and have more understanding, I said yes. And they set up a booth. It was very, very successful. So the key I'm telling you is that if you can find a partner in the Chinese community, and they will help you to find the door.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, as Hugh said, I think awareness is, another thing very important. Awareness being, when people approach you, would you like to support this foundation? If you never heard of it, never. And there's tons of foundations we already heard of. The chances are they will pick the advert rather than you, right? I think somewhere along the line you have to create some awareness, to the community.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I just want to add a couple of things. On the area of recognition, I actually had recruited both Larry Ma and Alan Ma as donors to Bell Lightbox. And Larry, he's been in Canada forever, just like myself. So I went up to him and I said, hey, dude, we'll like get our names on a wall. And even after you die, it's gonna be there. And he said, hey, that's great. So that was like a primary motivation. Now with Alan,
I'm not sure
it was
I
very
authorized
interesting.
this story here, Mr.
Yeah. With Alan, it was very different. He didn't understand anything about what film festival was. And I went through the whole explanation that a lot of films from China wouldn't even hit the North American market if it wasn't for TIFF. And I explained it to him and went through it with him, took him down to meet senior management. In fact, like 6 months later, after he had already signed his pledge form and had written a couple of checks already, he asked me when we were having dinner, so my name's up on the wall, like even after I finished the pledges? So clearly the recognition for Alan was not a big thing. He donated because he understood what TIFF was, and he thought it was something that was interesting to get involved in. So that's the first thing. But another thing that I want to ask you a question on, because when I did the pre-screening interviews, you very eloquently explained 3 different groups of mainland Chinese immigrants that are coming to Canada. And most organizations here, the immigrants from China are probably the most elusive because they're not really, well, a lot of them aren't even here. So they come here, they drop the kids off at school for a couple of years, and then they take off. But a lot of them do come back, and their kids are involved in things. People don't know a lot about them. Like the association that Alan is the president of, I just learned about it a few years ago. It's a great organization and really interesting members, the Canada-Shanghai Business Association. But if you could explain, Alan, what you explained to me on the phone, the 3 different groups, because I think it'd be very interesting for everybody here, the sort of the 3 categories of new immigrants that are coming from China.
Okay. First, in the 1989, beginning of 1990s, the Chinese come from mainland China just for get a visa student in that time. So this is the first group that come to Canada. After 20 years, many people right now have a successful business. They have lots of achievement. So this kind of a group of people, they are thinking about how can I contribute money to these countries, right? So this is have lots of peoples, but they don't know what is the foundation, what is the purpose, they don't know. So even like me, I don't know, right? We just focus on work, and to do some business, make money, right? But for this ones, we don't know. But when people know they want to do something, will be do something. Second is some people immigration to Canada, maybe immigrated to Canada, maybe just 10 years. This kind of people have lots of monies because when we come to Canada, China is very poor. Okay, still very poor. As a reform, we just start, right? But after 10 years, 15 years, so the people in China, they get a lot of opportunity to get money, make monies. So this is the very rich peoples. They're coming to Canada. They have the second generation. People start, go to schools. They have 2 kind of, okay, this group have 2 kind of people. One is they're not interested, okay, because they see lots of scandal in the Chinas. They don't want to donate any monies, okay. Second, if they know some things, if they tell you what is the purpose, what is the worth they will be do, they will be donate monies. Last group, I think, come from China, the new immigration, they are still working the labor work. It's very poor. I don't think there will be automatically donate the monies. Maybe if you have a big things happen, ask them to donate $20, $50, maybe it's good, maybe it's okay. But it's not the main market you should work. So I suggestion is focus on first or second group. Thank you.
But Alan, you mentioned scandals Because there are, unfortunately, a lot of scandals
Yes.
in China. There's a lot of
Yes.
charity scams.
Yes.
It's one of the easiest things to pull off in China. What, for example, with your membership base, what are a couple of things that would convince them that a charity here is reputable and that the money is going towards good use and that the money is being well spent? What are some of the things that even your members at the association would want to hear to at least make them interested in listening to more?
I think we want to see the money where it's going, what they did, what's the project, and good for the people. I think this is let people know the stories. One or two, that's good enough, right? Otherwise, the people will be scared. Where the money come from, right? Well, where the money going to, right? In the China, whatever in the 2008, it's a big earthquake. The last money donated to China from a postal, from a government, and also from all the Chinese in all over the world. But some monies go to the counties, or go to the towns. The money will be scared, not used for other purpose. That's why people will be, scared. I think this we need to educate people in here. Never happens these kind of things, right? And you can tell the people what the project already be done, what are the people already get the benefits. I think this is very important. Thank you.
Just doing a time check. I know that we got 7 minutes. That's 7 fingers. So maybe two more questions, and then we can sort of wrap it up. So.
Great, thank you. Hi, I'm Sarah Robertson from Upper Canada College. My question actually, Justin, you just mentioned a gift agreement, signed gift agreement. And it sort of comes back to what you mentioned earlier about being too professional, but balancing the relationship and the professional nature of the fundraising that we do. And I just wanted to know your feelings on the gift agreement, actually signing the pledge form, this kind of thing. Is this something that is sort of you would expect, you wouldn't expect? You would feel that we have good, long relationships with people. Handshakes mean a lot. Is a gift form okay? How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, gift form's okay. Handshake normally I don't think it's okay in here, right? Especially you want to pledge. UCC is a very famous school. If your school works on a handshake, it's great, but I would think agreement is always better because UCC did a great job. I have to say. I think it's one of the best private schools that did the most fundraising. So actually, I think people should. You should be on this panel. That people should learn from you, right? Yes. No, I think.
Thank you.
Hugh?
I think it's okay. But they have to watch the timing. Don't put a form early. And once somebody says already committed, and you will know when is probably time to put out the form and ask to sign. That's important.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Last question. Kai.
Thank you. My name is Kai Tao, and I'm just involved in many organizations and many initiatives in the past 20-some, 30 years. And I'm mainland Chinese, born in Guangzhou, and live in Hong Kong, and then in Winnipeg, whatever you want to call it, before I went to Toronto. Proud Canadian. I'm very interested to hear a little bit more elaboration on the donor hesitation from the mainland Chinese as emerging right now is a number that's with 3 different categories, Alan, that you mentioned. Notwithstanding, yes, there have been some failures in China itself. And yet, I have seen personally some successful projects funded by Canadians in China doing very, very well as well. The question is not only provide good information, tell them a good story, but how to overcome that kind of distraction, perhaps. And like Mr. Hong said, sometimes you only got one chance and become a problem at the end. How should we do that to maintain that direction so that the rest of the organization can move on and move forward and attract some of these newer donors to the pool? Thank you.
Okay. It is if you have no such a great stories, such a great project, it is very difficult. I think it's very difficult. People will say, why I give you money, right? They always think like this. So I think this, I can't give you right answer right now. I think it take time. That's all. Especially, as I said, you need to have a strong personal relationship. Then some people will do something for you. Okay. If I still think, if you have a strong relationship with some persons, key persons, it's not only one time, maybe more time. But, take time, right? Don't expect that one day people will give to you money for no super story is project. Very difficult. That's my opinion. Sorry.
Daniel, did you have a comment? Okay. Well, with that, I'd like to sort of close. Oh, did you have a question? Quick one? Okay. What time is it?
Okay.
We got 5 more minutes?
Thank you.
Okay.
My name is Ranjan Khatri. I'm a student from Humber College. I have a quick question. Just, wondering, is there any particular time, festival or occasion in Chinese culture where Chinese people tend to give more? That's the question. Thank you.
So is there a period of time of the year where Chinese people tend to give?
The Chinese New Year is definitely, which is coming up. So hurry up and.
Okay. Well, with that, I'd like to thank Daniel, Danny, Alan, Benson, and Hugh for your time. I think a lot of great information sort of came out today. Hopefully, everyone here feels that they're walking away with a bit more knowledge about the Chinese community and how to engage. Relationship is definitely very important. Patience, sincerity, certainly very important as well. But also at the same time, approaching one person in the community does not mean that's how you approach everybody in the community. So certainly having a buddy or being part of the Justin Poi groupie fan club certainly would help get you inside the community. I think the one thing that we didn't hear today that I'd like to sort of throw out for everyone to sort of noodle on is along the lines of having a buddy to sort of introduce you to the community is, if you're with an organization, is creating advisory boards or committees that have a Chinese presence on it. And I think if you look at the agencies that are successful in engaging the Chinese community, if you look at the boards, if you look at their event committees or the fundraising committees, you'll see a number of very well notable Chinese members of the Chinese community. So again, thank you to the panel, and on behalf of the AFP, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. If everybody could just remain seated. Oh, guys, hang on one second. Larry, Daniel, Danny, Alan, Hugh, and Benson, thank you very much. On behalf of AFP, we'd like to make a small donation to a charity of your choice as a token of our thanks. Thank you very much. Larry, can you just give these to everybody here? Great. Everybody, we're taking a bit of a break right now, and at 2:35 at the very latest, please be downstairs to the breakout session that you have chosen. So if you could just write this down or try and remember it. If you are part of the Roundtable for Tax Saving Benefits to Giving, that is in room C, and there'll be an AFP staff person directing to room C. Motivations to Give, there's actually 2 rooms because that was a larger group, room A and B. Motivations for Senior Volunteers, that's in the executive room. The executive room are the 2 large double doors that were right behind the registration desk as you came in. And Practical Tips for Donors is room 222. Okay, so we have a break right now, 2:35. If you could be in your breakout session, that'd be great. Okay, thank you. And at 3:35, we're all meeting back up here. We have our not-for-profit leaders panel. Thank you.